Okay, everybody listen up. There is an active shooter at Pitt Fest. As the nearest trauma center, we are going to be getting the majority of the victims. We don't know yet how many we are getting, but we are instituting hospital-wide emergency protocols. We need to move every patient out of here. They either go home, they go upstairs, or they go to family medicine. Call your loved ones now if you need to. I can guarantee you cell service will soon be overwhelmed. Eat something, stay hydrated, use the bathroom while there's time, and meet back here for a full briefing in 5 minutes. Brother, I'm so fucking glad to see you.
Heard it on the police scanner. How many are we expecting?
I don't know, but it doesn't sound good.
Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Today we are covering The Pitt, Season 1, Episode 12, titled 6 p.m. Please note this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, just come back and check us out after you've finished watching. Episode 12 was written by Joe Sachs and R. Scott Gemmell and directed by Amanda Marsalis. Mandy, would you care to read us the very lengthy synopsis for this one?
Thanks for getting your shit together this week, Wikipedia.
Right?
So we can do this right. As dozens of victims of the Pitt Fest shooting are brought in, night shift doctors arrive early, the waiting room is evacuated, and existing patients are moved elsewhere in the hospital. A triage system is established. Incoming patients are rapidly assessed on the basis of pulse and alertness and given color-coded bracelets to indicate how critical their condition is. Langdon returns to help, to Robbie's consternation. King discovers liver damage in a patient being treated for a broken leg whose deaf son is in surgery for gunshot wounds. She donates her own blood to keep the patient alive until blood bank supplies can arrive. Faced with a shortage of chest tubes, Javati improvises a substitute with available equipment, surprising her mother. Robbie signs the psychiatric hold form that he and Teresa fear that David might be the mass shooter. Santos discovers one patient is actually a photographer faking injury to gain access to the pit and access to hell. That's just my aside, not Wikipedia. Trying to escape, he slips on the bloody floor and hits his head. Chad comes looking for Harrison and is stunned by the carnage and chaos. McKay sends him to wait in the lounge with their son. Robbie is unable to contact Jake. Robbie and team are informed by the police that the shooter could be heading their way.
Wow, this episode is a big, gigantic yay for me. I give it 5 douche reporters getting knocked out of 5. How about you?
Oh, let's make that 10. It was great. It was another great episode. When they kept saying in the previews that they were going to completely change the tone, I wasn't really sure what exactly that meant. They definitely changed the tone, the pacing, the focus, all of that. It very much became as if you were in the middle of an ER during a mass casualty event. So
yeah, they did a great job.
Really different TV as usual.
All right, so let's head into specific show moments. I found this one very difficult to break down because it was so chaotic, but I thought we could just break it down by 3 big points that happened and then kind of discuss from there. So first off, Gloria. I was actually really happy that Gloria was decent this time. I'm glad she didn't come into the ER with a big fat attitude with everything that was going on. Even Robbie looked surprised that she was like, okay, whatever you need, I got it. And it did make me laugh, though, when Whitaker suggested that they use the empty wing on the 8th floor, and Gloria says they don't have enough nurses to staff it. And Robbie says, not going to comment on that one. It was very good continuity to them having this same conversation over and over again throughout the season.
Yeah, in a very subtle way to point out that in this situation, wouldn't it have been great if they had enough nurses?
Yeah.
His control there was admirable. One of the things that I noticed about this episode was how little navel gazing there was this time. There was not a lot of the emotional trauma back and forth between everybody. They're no longer present in this situation. Sometimes trauma and tragedy and like really, really stressful times are the times that you feel the most in control.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a theory about that it is because we spend most of our days anxious and worried. I think there's so many of us that go around with PTSD and we don't even realize that we have it. And so, like for me, I am the kind of person that sometimes I don't feel better than when the shit hits the fan. Certain times throughout the season when you've seen Robbie get triggered because he'll experience something that reminds him of losing his mentor. But here, it gives you something to do. All of those chemicals that you have in your body that you're constantly getting triggered throughout the day by minor stresses and things like that, those things cause fight or flight in your body. So you're just left feeling like shit because of all these chemicals that have been dumped in your body with nowhere to go. But in this situation, people are incredibly together, experiencing less psychological trauma than they might in downtimes because they have all of that adrenaline ready to go and you have something to fight. Does that make sense? I know that was a lot, but
Yeah, I think to try to sum up what you're saying is in a situation where shit's hitting the fan, so to speak, it is a relief not to have time to have to worry about normal, regular anxieties that plague your day.
yes.
So you can focus. It's chaotic, but that chaotic is almost a comfort chaotic. I don't know if that's the right word, but yes, I understand what you're saying. It's these people do not have time to worry about whether it's petty or monumental. All they can do is focus on the big picture, and they all do a phenomenal job of that.
See, as usual, you're doing a much better job of understanding the whirlwind of bullshit that goes on in my brain all the time.
Mandy.
Yes. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, that it was almost a relief to these doctors. They don't have time to sit and think about their anxieties. All they can do is be in the zone. And that was brilliant. I loved that.
So that brings us into the control both Robbie and Dana and even Dr. Abbott brought into the craziness. And I want to start with Robbie. I mean, that man, he's having this very sincere, heartfelt discussion with Dana. They get this phone call and he goes in and he's on it. He took control of the situation, making sure the ORs were ready and that more ORs were coming. Here's all the supplies that we need. You're going to go here. You're going to go here. And he did such a wonderful job explaining everything to the team, but not only making sure that when these victims arrive, that they will be taken care of, but he also takes a minute to tell his staff, hey, call your loved ones. Cell phone signals are about to get crazy. Eat something, stay hydrated, and use the bathroom while there's time. The man is so brilliant at what he does and that he can just shut off everything that just happened with Collins and everything that just happened with Dana. And he is focused on what's going on, but he also projects that confidence and strength onto his team. I mean, the look on their faces as he announces that there's this active shooter, especially these young residents who are on their first day and have never done it. But he kept it together the entire shift and still was teaching and helping and supporting everyone. And it was absolutely incredible acting by Noah Wiley and absolutely great writing and the execution from start to finish, directing, the set, the way they shot it. So you felt the chaos of it just was so amazing.
Yeah, it was nice for once to have an episode where, as horrible and violent and shocking as it all was, it was kind of nice to have an episode where Robbie was completely in control and you didn't feel like he was seconds away from losing it completely.
Yeah.
Same with Dana. It was nice to see Catherine Lanasa, got to shout her out again. The way that she just snapped back into going from, experiencing her own trauma to just being a complete professional and being on board and getting ready to handle what they knew was coming, which also begs me a question. I thought about if at any point in if this season or any other season, we get more input on how he knows how to deal with a mass casualty incident of this size.
Well, there's 2 things I want to say to that. We get into it in a little bit where we meet some of the new people who are on the scene. He mentions, did you attend that, mass casualty or whatever he called it meeting? And so I feel like this is something they rehearse and are ready for on a regular basis. And second, I don't think this is the first time that it may not have been a mass shooting that they've dealt with before, but this is obviously not the first time that they've dealt with some type of mass casualty, which gave both Dana, Robbie, and even Abbott the experience they needed to execute the way that they did so flawlessly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I hope in some future episode or season, they go into that. I'd like to know more backstory about that, because even in a city the size of Pittsburgh, what kind of mass casualty events that they might have experienced. And I actually kind of Googled a little bit about what constitutes a mass casualty event. And it could have been, a building collapse, 3 or 4 car pileup. But this scale is probably pretty unusual. And they did such a great job. I don't know. I just started thinking, I wonder, does he have any kind of a military background? Because, at some point, Dr. Abbott even says we are a MASH unit now. Mm-hmm. So that I wonder if either of the 3 or all of the 3 maybe have some kind of combat background. I know that all hospitals go through drills like this, but I got to imagine anything on this scale is pretty unusual. And they all just snap to it so quickly and so efficiently that it just made me wonder if we're going to get some backstory at some point that maybe they've been in the military.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned him just a minute ago, we have Dr. Abbott back. I figured that Sean Hodessy's character was coming back, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name, was coming back because this has to be an all hands on deck kind of situation. But it was really great to see him in the circumstances were absolute crap situation, but it was great to see him coming back looking more refreshed and able. I was glad to see him. And then I love the chemistry between him and Robbie. They're like a well-oiled machine. And, Abbott, just like Robbie, was in control as well. It's obvious he's good at his job. The man was donating blood while working on a patient. It's wild, but I want to say real quick that made me laugh. When he was going through the boxes and pulling out all of the stuff that they need, I don't know why that in this situation, because they're totally unrelated, but it reminded me of the emergency credit card kits that we would have to break out when the credit card machines went down at the restaurants we were working.
Oh man, that is a callback. I want to just congratulate the actor that plays Dr. Abbott. I just thought he did such a great job really differentiating that role from his role as that white nurse with the salt and pepper hair that he's normally playing.
Yeah, he's a dual actor. I was talking to Amy earlier. Y'all, I'm recording from Alabama. I'm here with some friends, and you'll hear one of them gave some feedback later on. But we were discussing our podcast, and she's starting to listen to our episodes of The Pit. And I was like, wait till you get to episode 2 or 3 where Mandy and I argue, not fight, but, we have a conversation about the doctors and patients that Mandy is sure are all the same person. So I'm glad you brought that back up, because that came up earlier this morning and that really made me laugh.
I have face blindness. I have a real strong tendency to not really be paying attention to features and details of human faces. And I really thought that actor was the same guy that plays the nurse. I hate that I didn't find his name, but the nurse that's in quite a few of the episodes that only vaguely resembles him a little bit when you actually look at them. But even this week, for a minute or 2, I was like, Robbie's really bonded with that nurse. I've never seen them.
You did not.
Close. I did.
Mandy. Oh, y'all.
But the progression of that is I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, Robbie's really bonding with that nurse. And then in the back of my head, I start hearing, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking. And I'm like, oh, wait, no. That's the guy that was going to do a header in the first episode. He's back.
So not only did you confuse the two, but you just broke out. Was it Creed? That was Creed, right?
I think so. Or Nickelback. I don't know.
No, I think that was Creed that you just broke into. But
I'm sorry to commit that kind of violence, but that truly was the way it played out in my head.
Y'all be glad I have edit privileges on this podcast. All right. So speaking of the control of all of this, the way that the hospital, the doctors, I don't know who set this up, but the zones, the triage, the slap bands, the tags, and how well executed all of that was kind of insane to me, that they were that prepared, like you were saying earlier. But I love, the zones. We're setting this up here. And then, it's kind of sad when they're talking about, Robbie's like, we've got 300 tags. I hope we don't have to use them all. And then the slap bands and going through what the colors mean, a lot of us don't know what all of that stuff is. And I thought they did a really great job of using the education of the staff to also educate the listeners. But how overwhelming was all of that information? And it just, the minds these people have to be able to keep track of all of that was just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about every time I get a new program update on my computer at work, I'm going to spend at least 6 days screwing it up. I can't imagine if you've never been in that situation and he's coming at you with all this information. I feel like I would be the person standing there going, wait, what? Because for instance, one thing I noticed is that pink was actually a pretty serious color in the band system. Red was, I believe, the most serious, and pink was second. And I just feel like in my mind, I would immediately be like, oh, pink is for the cute ones.
That's so pretty. They must be in a good place. Good for you, buddy. Good for you.
Yes. So I feel like I would have gotten a lot of people killed.
I've no doubt that our presence alone, we would have probably been the demise of a lot of people. An emotional crisis, Mandy and I, we are your girls. Put us in the cafeteria.
Right. I feel like he would have sent us on a coffee run.
Right.
But I was amazed by that. I thought, one, you think about slap bands as being something that kids, like a fun thing that kids use. So it's kind of brilliant that they use it, but also kind of sad that they have to use that to save lives. And I also hope that we hear from some medical people, if they have any knowledge of what something like this, whether it's just through training or you've actually been in an event like that. I would love to know how accurate that is.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully none of you have ever had to go through an experience like this, but I'm certain in some way, I think about 9/11 and those amazing, brave frontline workers who undoubtedly were involved in something beyond twice anyway, let us know what you've experienced. And if you want to do it privately, if it's not something you want to share on the podcast, we'd still love to hear from you and hear your experiences. And for those who are open to it, we'd love to share with the listeners about it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Dr. Robbie. That's his sexy name.
Becky, you are not doing anything to make Noah Wiley less creeped out if he ever does listen to this.
I am talking about the character.
Okay.
Noah Wiley does so many things right. He's a brilliant writer, director. We've seen throughout this entire series and a lot of his previous work what great of an actor he is, but he really impressed me. I think I say this every week, but watching him manage this trauma, not only manage the traumas coming in, but manage these brand new baby interns, doctors, all of them, helping them figure out what to do. But the way he kept it together, but also you could tell with every patient that walked in or was carried in or out in the ambulance bay when they arrived, he was looking for Jake. And it just again, kudos to Noah Wiley for being able to express so much with just a look on his face when he opens a door, looks at patients' faces. He's scanning the room looking for Jake, but at the same time, he's doing his job. And it's just the way he pulls that off is insane.
Yeah, I can't even imagine as a parent what that would be like, just, dealing with something that traumatic. And then on top of it, knowing in your heart that there's a distinct possibility that one of these people is going to be your kid.
Yeah. And then, on top of that, he's obviously now carrying the guilt on top of him that he, to me, it was very evident that the weight of not acting on McKay's concerns early on, it's with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have to be carrying some guilt if it turns out to be David, which seems likely. I believe they said they pinged David's cell near the festival. So, on top of everything else that has been piled on this man, now he's going to have to learn how to carry responsibility for not listening to McKay sooner. And I don't want to say not taking it seriously, because I do believe in his heart and in his mind he believed that what that young man wrote was serious. But like he said last week or week before to McKay, I was so worried about not ruining this man's life. I didn't think about everyone else involved. And I think that realization is crashing down on him right now.
Yeah. One of the things I think this show does really well and I love about it is that it's a purposeful decision on their part to subtly show how these doctors are human beings. They are capable of actions that would almost make you think that they are superheroes or godlike because they have this unique skill set, but they're also human beings. And repeatedly throughout this series, I think almost all of them have had a moment where they have to reflect on their own internal bias.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's horrible. Yet again, poor Dr. Robbie, who genuinely wants to save the world, is going to have to be confronted with the fact that a choice that he made in the middle of an incredibly traumatic day could potentially lead to so many people being injured or losing their lives. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for that. I am, you know me, I'm solidly pro-woman, like to the point that I will take the woman's side in almost any situation. And it comes from my own internal biases. And because of the things that I've been through, I tend to see things through the lens of being on the woman's side in any situation. And sometimes in certain situations, I'm going to overlook something that I probably should have seen because of my own internal bias. So I get it. I completely understand it. And I think that it's great that they're doing that because I think it's a conversation. It's so important to talk about that. It's so important for doctors, especially, to understand that they are capable of bias and that that's something that they should take into consideration while they're doing their jobs.
Yeah. Well, then, in the midst of all this chaos, wondering if his son is okay, processing his own feelings on how he might have been able to prevent a lot of this from happening, he looks up and sees Langdon there. I just want to say this, and I get Patrick Ball, if you're ever listening, please come on the show. You are brilliant at making me feel a lot of ways about your character, and you did a phenomenal job this time. My first thought was, okay, here's Langdon, and now he's back. So he wants to help. But then I'm like, Langdon, I don't think does anything for others. It's all for himself. And I think he saw this as an opportunity to get back into the ER and either show Robbie, look, I am good at what I do. You need me. Or just, whatever it was. But I feel like it was a pure act of selfishness that he showed up and was trying to help. And then the way he interacted with people, his showboat, cocky comments about himself, it felt, that whole part felt gross to me.
Well, shockingly, I'm actually going to defend Langdon a little bit here. Because one of the things I think about Langdon and Santos too, it's funny that they have the dynamic they do because I think they have a lot in common. And I do agree with everything you said about him being cocky, that it was probably not the best decision that he could have made. It's so gray though, man, because this is such an extraordinary situation and they genuinely needed all the help that they could possibly get there. But if you're on drugs,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
you're putting the patients at risk, but also you're putting the hospital and a supposed very good friend of yours in a shitty position, because when all of this comes out that he's been stealing drugs, which it's got to, they can't, and I don't see them ending this season without all of that coming to a head. And then he shows up for this mass casualty. Yeah, we need all hands on deck, but I think he's doing more harm than good because he's putting all these people he works with, patients and the hospital and Robbie, in a bad position for when shit hits the fan. And I don't condone him doing it. And I feel like it was absolute selfishness that he showed up.
I don't condone him doing it necessarily, but I don't agree that it was completely from a place of selfishness. I think two things can be true at one time. His character is inherently a self-involved character. This is kind of one of the things I was thinking about when I was talking about how I'm usually pro-woman. It's just such a gray area. If you look at different social medias and the age groups of the average person that are using that social media, there are very different feelings about Dr. Langdon in those spheres. On Facebook and Instagram, where, it skews towards Gen X or older on Facebook, and Instagram, it's mostly millennials, younger Gen X. Those people tend to be harder on Dr. Langdon. If you go on TikTok, oh my gosh, they love him. They absolutely adore him. They give him in my opinion, way too much credit. And it's a little misogynistic to me because he is so similar, in my opinion, to Santos. But whenever it's a situation where you're talking about something questionable that they did, they give him a lot more credit for just being a fairly decent guy who's misunderstood and he's struggling with something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're both flawed characters. I don't think either one is really a monster.
No.
And you look at Langdon, for instance, the situation where you've seen him with Dr. King, and he is capable of kindness. He is capable of empathy. He is capable of recognizing the good in others and encouraging, and he's a good teacher. And I don't think Robbie would be his friend if he was completely that self-absorbed. But that doesn't mean, in this situation, it's just one of those, very much like, the whole theme of the episode is so much of this past season is now out the window, because the whole theme of this is that you are in the fire now and choices have to be made to save lives that you can deal with the repercussions later.
Yeah, I don't argue that. I don't argue any of that with you. And, I've been Team Langdon for the majority of the season. Langdon and King alone make me love Langdon. But all I'm saying is, I personally think his choice to come back, while in his mind, he probably did have good intentions, but at the heart of this man is a very selfish person. And I think, be it subconsciously or consciously, was a big driving force in what made him show back up.
Could be. I'm going to withhold judgment on that. But, to your point, anybody that's continuously calling when they were already in a super stressful situation just because you want somebody to make you feel better about a crappy choice you made, that definitely is some childish, immature behavior there. So I don't know.
We'll see.
Did you notice, though, that Dana gave him the cold shoulder?
Yeah, and I don't blame her. I do not blame anybody for their reactions to him at all.
Yeah.
We could go on for hours about this topic.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was one of the most interesting things about a very, very interesting episode.
Yeah, and when we get into show news and notes, actually, I'm going to read a little bit of an article with Patrick Ball and Amanda Marsalis, who directed this episode, about Langdon and his return. So it's got a few good points on what we're discussing right now that I think will be worth listening to.
Cool.
All right, I want to move into what my favorite part of this whole episode is these interns / residents. They rocked my world, and I put them in order in how they rocked my world. And I'm starting with Javati. This young woman is fascinating. Watching her, and to think it was how many hours ago?
14.
That we met her and she was fainting in the ER. I love seeing her growing confidence, and she really stepped in and handled that chaos well. She still masters that deer in headlights look, but she's not letting any of that, when before you might see her, it's that Homer Simpson meme where he slowly slinks back into the bushes. That's how I felt about her when confronted with tough situations. But then her shining moment to me is when her mom came down, and her mom is trying to teach her in a very chaotic moment something she obviously already knows, and she just looks at her mom, and I'm reading quotes, so watch out for some language. Read the fucking room. And I was like, actually did a yes in that moment. But what was really sweet is, two things. One, she ends up teaching her mom some things. The roles are reversed, and her mom is dealing with the situation. She doesn't have the supplies she's used to having. This is not her ideal situation, and Javati is teaching her mom. And I loved that. But what was cutest and sweetest and shows the growing relationship that we talked about last week between Javati and McKay is after she said that to her mom, you could tell it was like, oh crap, did I just do that? And then she looks up and there's McKay giving her that sweet, good girl, good job. And you could just see her just well with pride. It was just, I loved all of Javati in this episode, man. She blew my mind.
I thought it was so cool that I love that moment between her and McKay. And by the way, it's 12 because we're on episode 12 now. It's 12 hours ago that we met her.
It feels like 14.
I know, it feels like 7 years ago. But anyway, we've had so many different discussions about how is this going to play out with Javati? Is Javati's arc going to be that she discovers that she's not cut out for medicine and she's only doing this to make her parents proud? And I think we got our answer here. And you remember that this girl is a literal genius. This is a 20-year-old girl who, this is her very first day in the ER, and she just snaps to it immediately. When the shit hits the fan, she is ready, and she is MacGyvering the shit out of that ER. And Mateo noticed.
Girl, I saw that.
Her mom said something like, this is nuts, or this is chaos, or something like that. And he said, no, this is genius. And she was like, that's right. That's right, Mateo. That's what I'm laying down. You got a genius here. So, man, I wanted to get up and cheer for her in that moment. I was so happy for her. Like, it had to have taken some of the sting out of I'm Free Sunday.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Mateo because that was a cute little moment.
Yeah, and I think that that I'm Free Sunday moment out of a very, very traumatic season of television may have been the most violent thing that they've done.
It's her Utah.
Yes.
I mean, come on. That is important stuff. You want to talk about bias? Girl, we are women.
Yes.
And we have been Mateo'd. We have been Utah'd, okay?
Yes.
So, yeah. Javati may be wrist deep in somebody's lung cavity right now, but we know it's important.
Yes, we know that she got her groove back in that moment.
Yes. All right, King. I feel like every week there's something amazing to say about King, but what really impressed me with her first, I want to say it was so sad, her trying to talk on the phone with the administrator or wherever of the facility her sister is. And she's like, please let her know I can't be there on time to pick her up. And then she's like, I don't know when, but that, she immediately shifts. So she, that's an important thing, but she compartmentalizes it. And then how she stepped up and was such an amazing leader. She started the donation of the blood, but, she was giving orders to her peers. They're all on the same level, but we talked about it several episodes ago, how you look at her and the way she carries herself and talks about what needs to be done. I look at her and I think I'm looking at a senior resident. I just love that about her. And then how put King in a situation where families are involved and she shines. She, rushing to make sure that the chart was marked for the deaf kids. So when they would know when he wakes up from surgery that he is hearing impaired, and how she was just so worried about saving that mother. So not only that child is suffering from the trauma of a mass shooting, but doesn't want him to wake up to not having a mother as well.
Yeah, I loved that Robbie was smart enough to put her as the head of her little operation there, because she definitely, of all of the ones that are starting today, Javati obviously has the most medical experience due to her background, and she is a genius, but King is already showing so much emotional maturity that she definitely was the right choice to lead that team. And I loved that the same thing that you noticed, that, these little human things that she never loses track of. A few things I thought, I had a moment of feeling so sad for the sister because she is on the spectrum, as King has discussed before. So I had a moment of sadness thinking about them trying to make her understand why King couldn't be there. And the look on Taylor Dearden's face, she's so good. Seeing her, that was an anguish that was going through her, is that she knew no matter what, her sister was going to have a hard time understanding why she wasn't there at the time that she promised that she would be there to pick her up. But then, like you said, she just snaps into it and she starts leading her team with kindness and compassion. I want to say real briefly, I wonder if that mother of the child who's deaf, when we see her in the van, she seems to be trying to offer some kind of first aid to her kid. And she is very together for somebody who's just experienced that trauma. So just as an aside, I'm wondering if we're going to find out that she has some kind of medical training as well. But King giving, like, immediately thinking about getting blood donations going, pointing out that she's O negative, that she wants to give that woman her own blood to make sure that she has the best chance of survival. The moment that she had when she realized Langdon was back, and how happy she was. All of it.
Yeah,
I
that
loved.
was sweet.
It was just another real great episode for Taylor Dearden and Dr. King. And I just really enjoyed everything about her storyline this week.
So then Whitaker, I don't think Whitaker was as front and center this week as he has been in previous weeks, but he did get that really brilliant moment of catching that liver laceration and saving that mom's life. I just wanted to mention that with him. And while he didn't necessarily grow into this brilliant leadership role or anything during this moment like some of the other interns did, he really was present. And wherever they needed him to be, he was like, I'm there, I'm good, I've got this. And then he was gone. I just wanted to give him a little bit of kudos because I think it's interesting to see how all of these newbies reacted to this day.
Yeah.
Which brings me to Santos. We take notes, bullet point notes, but I actually wrote a small paragraph here about Santos. And if y'all don't mind, I'd like to read it. I feel like I'm giving an acceptance speech or something. Santos. Very mature, handling having to deal with Langdon's return, catching the douche reporter and dropping his phone in the mop bucket, her dealing with the lady that had the gunshot in her arm while she was in the wheelchair. Santos did her very best to comfort her, but it was a sad realization for Santos and I think all of us. There really is nothing you can say to someone in this situation. And I think Santos at that moment realized the traumas that she's dealing with aren't just physical, that these are mental too. And this is something that's going to be with these doctors, but most importantly, every single one of these affected patients for the rest of their lives. She really acted all of that out. Issa Briones did a phenomenal job this entire episode, and I just wanted to read those thoughts because I wanted to get them right because I think she deserves it.
Yeah, I think of course, I love her to death. She's my favorite character consistently, but I think she showed some real growth just in her acting choices. Issa Briones' acting choices this week. I love that Santos immediately started backing up King, who she has repeatedly dismissed and been snarky to throughout the season. I love that she did not in any way, shape, or form try to question that King was in charge and that she was going to be second banana this week. That showed growth. I thought, like you said, even though she didn't have some kind of miraculous, complete sea change in her character, you could see that she understood sometimes wounds are emotional and that she dialed back and tried her best to be as compassionate as she possibly could while still tending to the injuries that she had to deal with, and that she didn't get in Langdon's face or say a word about Langdon being back. And I loved that they had that one little moment where they were both kind of pissy about the guy. Yeah. I loved that Santos and Langdon became BFFs in that moment for just a second. Yeah, because again, I do think they're very similar characters. And I think why they rub against each other so much is because of the things that they have in common, that it's just kind of a pissing contest between the two of them. So I liked that moment where they were both on the same team for just a moment. And her dealing with that shithead reporter, total Santos.
They could have given that story to anybody, but they did the right thing giving it to Santos because I feel like it made all of it just a little bit sweeter that it was her.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the characters may have waffled about whether or not it was the right thing to do. She didn't worry about that. That's my girl.
She's like, you.
Sometimes they're not gray. Sometimes they are, in fact, black and white. And that asshole deserved exactly what he got. For a moment there, I kind of thought he might be the shooter, and I'm a little concerned. I hope it doesn't turn out he was the shooter and that phone had some kind of information on it.
I'm choosing to take that moment as it was a douchebag got his due.
Me too. That's what I want to believe. And I was really proud of her, and I wanted to high five her in that moment.
So lastly, and I don't have a whole lot to say other than Mohan, and I just wrote here, boss bitch, absolutely killed it. I loved seeing her take a leadership role, step up, and absolutely nail it.
You know what I loved about that? I love that Robbie chose her to be with him. I love that as much friction as they've had in that moment, he recognized her skills and he believed that she was going to step up and be the leader that she was throughout this whole episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great choice for him to choose her after all the shit he's given her to be on his team.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have for main points. Is there anything else you want to add, or are we good to head into chart notes?
No, we're good.
All right. Well, let's move into chart notes. So we get to see some new people this week. I wrote down here, we've got Dr. Shin, played by Ken Kirby, who is the night shift attending. This dude cracked me up. I love a show that in its darkest moments can give you just a little bit of levity. And he was that little bit of levity. And it was making me laugh that Robbie is telling him very, very important information. And this dude's like, yeah, okay, sure. And Robbie doesn't think he's taking him seriously. But when Robbie tosses the questions at him, he's Johnny on the spot. He's got the answers. He knows what he's doing. Just let him sip his iced coffee and he's got this. I really liked him. I think he's a nice addition.
I had a different thought about that. You know what it made me think about? I do take notes most weeks, but I'm not a great note taker. Like back when we waited tables, I prided myself on the fact that I never used a pen. As long as it was a table of 9 or under, I could remember everybody's order and didn't have to write it down most of the time. But guess what? Sometimes that really flew back in my face. And when the shit hit the fan, I wasn't prepared. So I thought he was being pretty cocky and didn't really understand the magnitude of about what was going to happen. And I think he was smart. It reminded me of the weeks that we're doing this, Becky, and I don't go and fully look at all the notes that you very meticulously and beautifully prepare for us. And I get caught out in certain situations because I'm not prepared. I felt like that was what happened with that guy. He was starting out like, oh, I've seen some shit. Don't worry. I've got this. You don't have to worry about me. But by the end of that episode, his face was completely different.
But he handled it.
He did handle it.
That's what I'm saying.
For sure. But he was a whole lot less cocky about his experiences and abilities by the end of that episode. This had changed him. By the time that the credits started to roll on this, he was saying, I can't remember what his last quote was, but it was something like, how many more people are we going to have to deal with? How much more can we handle? So I think he kind of got his butt handed to him a little bit, or at least his ego got its butt handed to him just a little bit by the end of it. And I think he understood better why it was really important to take this very, very seriously.
Yeah. Well, next up, we have Dr. Ellis, who is played by Aisha Harris. We don't see, from what I remember, we don't see a whole lot of her, but she seemed very confident and delivered one of the best lines when she was off on her way to start bringing in patients, and like, just holler if you need help. And she immediately starts walking and is like, help.
Yeah.
I like her, so I'm excited to see more about her.
She was funny.
And then we have Dr. Walsh, who I'm sorry, I could not find on IMDb anywhere. She was the surgery point person and an absolute badass. I was impressed.
Yeah.
All right, so next chart note, Dr. McKay, Chad, and Harrison. I am telling you right now, I think this was a wake-up call for Chad. Him walking into all that chaos and the look on his face, and kudos to this actor and the directors for how they chose to shoot that. Because I think this is the first time that Chad actually realizes how much McKay does and how hard her job is and how strong she is to be able to do what she does. And I am grateful in all of this that they could have shown us in this episode, that they made a point to show that, because I think that's going to be very important for their relationship going forward, and obviously helping Harrison going forward, who was very brave to tell his dad, I really would rather stay with my mom.
Yeah, I hope so. I got the same thing that you did, that he was being his usual man-child self. It was all about him. He wanted to just go wander in and try to bug McKay some more, get some more of her attention. And then you could see just like the bomb blast look on his face when he really took in everything that was going on. And then I thought it was rather telling that he ended up sitting in the waiting room. I think he was recognizing inside himself at that moment how immature he really was. And we got confirmation that they were married. She called her his wife. So I wonder if they're still married.
I doubt it.
God, I hope not. But anyway, went in to go sit with Harrison. And I do think he felt his own smallness inside himself.
Yeah.
Compared to her. I really hope that the way that they approach this going forward is that he is going to have a newfound respect and grow up a little bit. I hope that it doesn't, and this is just my cynicism, I hope it doesn't go the opposite direction. And sometimes small men, when faced with their smallness, become even more petty. It makes them feel small. I think I've said small like 17 times in the last sentence, but you know what I mean? Like, I just hope that it doesn't then make him double down on something like, this is too much. You can't, it's too much chaos or whatever. I want to believe that he's learned some lessons from this and that he's going to be a better father and a better co-parent.
I think so. I'm not saying it's going to be an overnight situation, but the way he was very accepting of Harrison's request that he really wants to stay with his mom, and the way he looked at her with just respect for once, that I don't see this going badly, but with this show, you never know. So
yeah, I hope so.
So next up, I called him Willie Nelson, sweet hippie patient, taking his medicinal marijuana, and dude asked him, well, for what? He's like, for everything. Everything he said, what happened to the peace and love in this world? He's such an advocate. You're like, I'll hold this. You've got more important things to do. Go take care of other patients. He just was a bright spot in this horrible situation. So I just wanted to shout him out, and whoever the actor was that played him, it made me think, if you're going to go through a traumatic experience, I want a Willie Nelson type person sitting there, hopefully with some good weed, to help me through it.
He reminded me of Carolyn.
Oh, Ladybug.
Yeah, just his whole demeanor. He also made me think about Eric. My husband's favorite band is Widespread Panic, which is a jam band.
Very good.
Yeah, they're a great band. And so many concerts we've been to with that guy there. Like, old deadheads, they're generally a little bit older than we are. You could tell that they probably were old deadheads and Fish fans. And then they kind of kept that youth and that spirit and started following some of the younger, I say younger, now we're the old, jam band fans, but they're at every show, 60s, 70s, you'll see them. They're still just loving the groove along and enjoy the music. It touched my heart to see him having to deal with the ugliness that can happen, because to people like that, like, those concert spaces are sacred. That's their church. And it just kind of hurts your heart to think about them having to deal with something this ugly and violent in a space that has always brought them so much joy.
Yeah. Well, then we get SWAT. We get a note that the SWAT team is setting up, and Dr. Shen is like, whoa, what's this all about? And they're like,
that's when it started to sink in with him, I believe.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it with you? I think the severity of the situation had hit him, but if I had been him, but Dr. Robbie could have come out and he'd be like, what's going on? SWAT showing up. I think everyone would have felt some reality of the severity that this guy might be coming your way.
For sure.
I don't want to see that, but I just wanted to make note that, buckle up, watchers and listeners. It's don't think we've seen the worst of anything on that yet.
Oh, man. Oh, I really, really hope that he doesn't make it into the hospital.
Same. So I just wanted to give a nod to the show for showing the patient side, the victim side, but also the family side by having Kiara and Lupe working with the families in the hospital cafeteria. Technology nowadays has come such a long way, and it makes me think, 20 or 10 years ago, even, how differently this would go. But it was, they had these QR codes, scan, upload photos and identifying marks of your loved ones, and just a much better way of being able to communicate with these people so that they can try to hopefully get information on their loved ones, because these people are walking around or being rolled around that emergency room with wristbands with note cards on them, basically. So I just wanted to give credit to both those actresses. I think they did a great job showing the understanding and concern for the severity of the situation, but also talking to these people in a very respectful, them find some comfort during a situation like this.
Yeah, I think it really highlighted the importance of social services in hospitals and how needed they are. It's not just about the person that's being treated. Often it's about the trauma that the family is going through. And so I love that the show was highlighting that. And both of those women did such a great job reflecting in their choices the absolute sadness that they are experiencing at having to be doing this, but then also the professionalism that they exuded when they were trying to, because can you imagine?
No.
We talked about 9/11 earlier, and I had a thought, I wonder how much of this, one of the things I love about science and smart people is how you take everything and you learn from it. I wonder how much trauma, mass casualty, medical experience and the responses came out of 9/11.
Oh, I'm quite certain it was a lot.
Yeah, it really made my brain start going down a weird little rabbit hole thinking, I wish that I could source that and find out how much of the choices. I wonder if there's any articles out there that talk about maybe where a lot of this was learned through different mass casualty things like that, even like military. Like I said, I bet a lot of it comes from military, but just, how these two women have probably been trained in this forever and maybe have dealt with it in a minor way. But this is very likely the first time that they've had to use that training in real life in such a huge event. And you can tell they hate that they're having to do this, but they're doing it. And it's so important. And it meant so much to the people in there to feel like someone is giving them something to do that might help the situation instead of just leaving them in there to be terrified and alone. I just felt those people's relief in that moment. Like if I were one of those family members, how much it would mean to me to have somebody come in and just be like, we haven't forgotten you. You are going to help us here. As horrible as it is to think about having to give them information that might be used to identify a body. Oh, I'm tearing up because I'm a mom. As a mom, I'm trying not to think about if that were your child or something like that. But it was such a great choice that they made to include that, because that would be such a massive part of controlling the environment in that situation. How much more stressful would it be if you have hundreds of family members feeling like they don't have someone communicating with them and helping them to keep control? So, yeah, I loved that scene. I thought that was great. And I thought both of those women did a great job.
Yeah. I saved the most important chart note for last. Where the hell is Myrna?
Where is Myrna?
How did Myrna get free? Where is Myrna? I am freaking out. I need to know where Myrna is.
It's like Freddy Krueger's loose in the hospital somewhere, and you never know where she's going to pop up. Myrna's got a dark side, man.
I know she has a dark side, but right now she's just Myrna who's losing her mind. And where is she? Myrna's going to be the one to take down this shooter. You heard it here first. Myrna is going to save everyone.
I hope so.
I'm sure of it. Write it down.
I had that same thought. I really hope so, because I love Myrna to death. But everybody did very much have the sharks back in the water look on their face when they realized that Myrna was loose somewhere in the hospital.
I want hashtag find Myrna to become something. So I need all y'all to get on that.
Where in the world is Myrna San Diego?
Yeah. Where in the world is Myrna Pittsburgh? All right. So wrapping up, let's get into final thoughts. Here's my notes. Absolute total chaos, but it was amazing to see how every person on that staff is handling it. There was some really impressive procedures. There's a lot of gore, but I appreciate it for showing the reality of what the aftermath of a mass shooting looks like. Once again, this show does a phenomenal job of bringing to the TV screen another sad reality of some of the awful things that are happening in this country way too often. And I'm absolutely shocked that that was a 40-plus-minute episode, because by the time they got to the end, I was like, that's it. And it had only felt like 10 minutes had gone by, which was wild, given everything that happened.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the way that they did, as they promised, completely change the tone of the show. And I am curious to see if this is going to be the tone over the next couple of episodes. Are we going to have more moments where we explore some of the backstory of these characters, or if it's just going to be nonstop action going forward?
I don't know. I can't, I don't even know how to make predictions for this show anymore.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. I had the thought that was different about this, and the choice to do this is it now feels like that whole 11 episodes leading up to this was prologue to this specific event. I guess what I mean by that is that when you watch other medical dramas, a situation like this would just be maybe a very special episode. By choosing to do this season the way that they did, where you are 1 hour into this shift with every episode, what they have done with all of this trauma before, where we are getting to know the actors and every week they're dealing with very, very serious situations, is that you think that you have a pretty good understanding of how stressful the ER can be, and you had no idea. And now you have gotten to know these characters, but now this is now a medical drama. Does that make sense? They're not superheroes. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like in Grey's Anatomy, the trauma of something like this would just be kind of like an incidental, or just something that happens in the episode, and that these people are larger than life. So of course they're going to be able to jump in and do what they do. But this show, through giving us these 11 episodes before, where we are really understanding that these people are deeply flawed, what it takes for them to be able to accomplish what they're accomplishing now, it just seems so much more real.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see them have to go from this very deep, caring situation to now we have to put all that to the side, and we are literally just trying to stop the bleeding as quickly as we possibly can. You really see what it costs them to be able to do that in a way I have never seen in television before. So it's just brilliant.
Cool. Okay, so trivia. What do you got, Mandy?
So you notice there was a scene in there where I think it was King had said, so we're going to give O negative blood to everybody that comes in. And O negative is the universal donor. Anyone can receive. But if you notice in that one scene where she's talking to Robbie, he says, nope, we're going to give O positive blood to boys under 13 or women over 55. Everyone else gets O negative. I was confused about that at first. So I Googled it to see why that is. And O negative, of course, is the universal donor. Anyone can take O negative blood. If you have that blood type and you haven't already been hit up many, many times to give blood as often as you can, please know that your blood is like gold. You can be given to anybody at any time. It's the one that they're going to run out of the quickest in an emergency situation. So I was curious about why he instructed her to only give O positive blood to kids boys under 13 or women over 55. And I found, I think, a pretty good answer here. This is from Quora, which is an online open source thing that you can get answers to different questions that people ask. And I'm going to pretty much read this verbatim. It's from a man named Alexander Strang, PhD, laboratory specialist in clinical chemistry. He said in emergency situations where you do not know the blood type of the patient, you give them O negative blood, regardless of this, if it's a man or a woman. You don't deviate from this unless you run out of O negative units. In that case, things have gone horribly wrong either way. One reason I can think of is in cases of extreme multi-trauma where a lot of different people need blood at the same time. Think of a touring car that's crashed or a terrorist attack. If there simply is not enough O negative blood available for everyone, it may, in such extreme circumstances, be allowed to give O positive blood to an O negative patient. In these cases, young men would be preferred to get O positive units because they're unlikely to have formed anti-D antibodies in the past, and because the anti-D antibodies that they will inevitably form because of the transfusion cannot hurt an unborn child. So in other words, if you were giving it to young girls at some point, when they get pregnant later on, it could cause problems for their child if their child had anti-D antibodies. Women may have already formed anti-D antibodies because of a previous pregnancy, in which case the transfusion will do more harm than good. If not, which is why they were he was advising to give it to women over 55 because they are no longer of childbearing age for the most part. If not, they will form anti-D antibodies, which will severely complicate a future pregnancy.
Cool.
It causes something called rhesus disease. It's because giving it to a younger man, if it does cause him to develop rhesus disease, it's not going to obviously be able to affect any child going forward, and they can treat him for it later. Same with women over 55. They're not going to potentially look at. So it's a way when you're in an emergency situation to have this other universal donor product available.
Thank you for sharing that. That was interesting. I wondered that too, so I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, I learned something new.
It's time to move into misdiagnosis, and I'm going to let Mandy tell you her perception of this week, and then I'm going to tell you how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you could add to it. It's just clearly obvious that I am, again, perfect for yet another week. I had no notes on my performance last week. Flawless as usual.
Yeah, it's the yet another week thing that gets me because we all know that it is not yet another week, but I will give her that this week she is flawless this week. And I'm also happy to say I have no misdiagnosis either. So,
always keeping me humble.
That's my job. All right. So show notes and news. I'm not going to read the entire article, but as usual, we will post this entire article in show notes so you can have a chance to read it if you want. But Meredith Jacobs with TV Insider in an interview with Patrick Ball and Amanda Marsalis. When episode 12 hits, it's like an entirely different show, says Patrick Ball, who plays Langdon, who returns to help, though Robbie sent him home after realizing he's an addict and has been stealing patients' pills. Kudos to showrunner Scott Gimel. So much of the genius of what he's done with how he has built this season and how he's sort of set up. I watched the first 2 episodes and was like, man, I love this show. This is great. How cool that I get to be a part of this show. And then every episode that comes out changes my mind as far as what this show is. And as every episode comes out, I'm like, oh my God, this is my favorite new episode. This is awesome. But having all the patients after the shooting, that's where I'm at my happiest, according to Ball, speaking as his character. I like to not think. I just go on instinct. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. I love this job. This is where I'm my happiest, and this is where I'm most at home. I like to move fast and help other people, not so good at helping myself, really not so good at sitting still with what is happening in my own body. For Langdon, it's easier to jump into this chaos than it is to go home and face his family and admit that he was fired. But Ball points out there's a lot of questions that still remain unanswered as far as what it means long term. And I don't really ask for permission. I just sort of come in and do it. And so there's a lot of conversations yet to be had. So fingers crossed it goes well. Robbie does tell Langdon that he shouldn't be there, but there isn't time for more than a very short conversation with all the patients in the ED. Perhaps this is one way he can earn back Robbie's trust. This is a hope for Langdon, but Ball adds, first and foremost, I'm doing what needs to be done. Trust or no trust, fired or not fired. I am the best doctor you got, and you need me on the floor, and that's where I'm going to be because there are lives that need to be saved. And so that's the first priority. And when we deal with the latter, Marcellus echoes that. No one in that episode actually has time for feelings. They have those micro moments of feelings, and then they have to save people's lives. And that's true of Robbie in that moment with Langdon. He can't let him go, but he's got to be pissed, and then he's got to just get rid of those feelings. I thought that summed up very well Langdon's return, and hope you guys read the rest of it because the rest of it's really good too.
Yeah, I think he kind of backed up what we discussed earlier. He is kind of a selfish guy, and he would much rather focus on other people. I love that they pointed out he doesn't want to go home and admit he got fired, but also that he is good at what he does, and they really needed him in that moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
So let's move on to some feedback. Once again, you awesome people came through, and thank you so very much. Mandy, you want to start us off?
Yep, via YouTube for episode 11, at Linda1541 says, "Thank you, ladies. I love your podcast." Thank you, Linda.
We love
That's
you.
very sweet. We appreciate you.
Yes. And at Cano0794, I love this person for answering our questions. This is about our debate last week, was what Mohan did wrong. So here's their answer. So Mohan was wrong in giving the patient a medication without telling him what type it was. This is the reason why we cannot give placebos to patients outside of strict rules with drug trials, as patients have a right to know what they are receiving. She told him it was a morphine-like medication, which is incorrect. It's an opiate antagonist. You use them for completely different things, even if in this situation the patient had the same symptom response. So the combination of essentially lying to the patient about what she was giving him and not running it by her attending was the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, that helps clarify a lot. Yeah, so thank you so much.
I didn't get the lying part. She was essentially giving him the truth, but not the whole truth. So that's the part I was missing.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that. And please keep the feedback coming.
Yeah, I love hearing from medical professionals. That's some of my favorite parts of covering the show. At Mary Good 733, also via YouTube, says, "I love this podcast. Thank you so much for the wonderful recaps." Mary also gives us some suggestions for other shows to cover. Hint, hint, you guys, we are still taking that suggestion. We're coming up at the end of this series. So we love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Mary.
Yes, thank you.
At 1L Schwartz says, "Keep up the good work, ladies. We all look forward to your review of The Pit. Buckle up for the next episode." Thank you so much.
That's so sweet. So via Reddit's The Pit page on this episode, 13 Surgeries says, "I was astonished when the end credits rolled. I was so absorbed, I lost track of time." So did I. Another cliffhanger that makes it hard to wait till next Thursday. And then Mirror Successful 2510 replied, "To be honest, it only felt 5 minutes long." I know it didn't feel as much as that was packed in there. It didn't feel like it was that long.
I kept seeing that over and over again in comments that people made on social media. And felt exactly the same.
Yeah.
Juliet, not Julia. Love your name, by the way.
You're great.
My daughter's middle name is Juliet. I love that name. It was wild and so damn good. TV done right. I'm waiting on next week. This show is a 10 out of 10 for me. Same, Juliet. Loved it. Appreciate you.
M.H. Mooses. Oh my God. Y'all, can we start a bet on who the shooter is? And Fabulous Mongoose 488, another great name, replied,
"These names, man, I love them. You guys are so much more creative than I am."
"They're amazing." But Fabulous Mongoose 488 replied, "They spent 11 episodes showing us the warning signs of a potential active shooter and why it's so important to report them immediately. Yes." And at Breadstick Bear replied to that saying, "It's so obvious. I'm expecting it to be a red herring." And I like that comment because I want us to all keep in mind this show will make you think something and then go in a completely opposite direction. So if Myrna rounds the corner and is taking everybody out, don't be surprised. So that was a good point, Breadstick Bear.
Mushroom Shroom Room. Okay, now you're just trying to mess with me here. Mushroom Shroom Room. Yeah, I did that right.
You did good.
I absolutely love that there's no music, just realistic hospital audio. Same. It really makes each scene more impactful by demonstrating how much chaos is going on around the doctors, but how calm and focused they are on each patient. Yeah, that was I noticed that too.
This is one of my favorite comments because I don't know if you remember back early on, I think it was around episode 3 or 4, I noticed that there isn't a bunch of background music playing over these really insane emotional scenes. And it, to me, makes this show feel real. And I'm glad, Mushroom Shroom Room, that you brought that up. That's one of my favorite things about the show, too.
And Mushroom Shroom Room, can you just keep commenting every week so we can have an excuse to say your username?
Well, yes, please. Sue B says, it certainly was wild. Yes, ma'am, it was.
And Sweetest Lorraine says, reminds me of the Blizzard episode of ER, but better.
Oh, wow. Yes. Such temperature 1777. Absolute madness. Had me on my toes. So scared and excited for next week. Same.
And Kermit for the win says, Langdon's return. That's it. Yeah, that says it all.
I love that when I was like, that is, if we could learn to talk like you, Kermit, our podcast would be a lot shorter.
Becky's editing would be much easier every week.
So via our Facebook post on this episode, Anita L. Evans says, man, all of my germaphobe willies were crawling in this episode. The blood everywhere. Glad the reporter got his dues. I agree. There were moments when they were going from patient to patient without changing gloves. And I was like,
I'm going to break the fourth wall here for just a second and make an admission that Anita is, in fact, my mommy. And I want to say that because she's a major germaphobe. My mother's biggest phobia in life is dirty Band-Aids. So I just want to give her kudos for going on this journey with us and sticking it out, because she's not kidding or exaggerating when she says that watching this was probably super traumatic for her. Erica Land, Erica, yay, we love hearing from you every week. Myrna, ma'am, this is not the time to escape that wheelchair.
Facts.
Yes. When we see Langdon working, my jaw dropped. Mel's response to him made my heart happy, but then sad at the same time. Yes, same. He's damn good with her and the patients. When McKay's ex was watching her in her element, I think it was dawning on him just how hectic her career truly is. I'm guessing that his biggest complaint during their marriage was, yes, girl, I thought the same thing. I'm guessing that her biggest complaint during their marriage was she wasn't giving him enough attention. And now that he has someone younger that seems to worship the ground he walks on, he loves it. He may now be starting to realize that it wasn't due to her that he wasn't getting the attention he sought. It was her trauma headspace of being in this environment day in and day out, and that she was simply worn out at home. I'm going to stop here because I'm going to say, Erica, you were in my head. Again, so much better spoken than I could put it. I think that's exactly what he was experiencing in that moment. And I think he made him feel very, very small. Erica goes on to say, every new episode, Mel gets better and better. She is such an amazing human being. She is. Great character. Almost too good for this world. This was just hour one of this incident, and it's a doozy. And it seems like it will ramp up even further next episode.
Yeah, not ready.
Thank you, Erica. You spoke for both of us. I think that was very well put.
Susan Cook Ragsdale, wow, with a shocked face emoji. Thrill ride from start to finish. I didn't want it to end. I can't even begin to imagine the coordination and rehearsal time it took to make all that look flawless and professional as it was. Very true. This show deserves an Emmy. It deserves all the Emmys, Susan. This show deserves an Emmy in its first season, and I'm rooting for that. Most definitely my favorite show this year. I got to agree.
Yeah,
It was The Penguin on HBO Max, but now it's definitely The Pitt.
Mary Warden Good says, wow, in all caps. That episode needed longer. Insanely well done. Of course, the wacky lady would go missing and Langdon showing up, and Mary gives us 5 exclamation points there. Javati showing her mom how it's done. Way to go. Had to laugh at her outburst. Finally watched credits through and saw previews for next week. Yay, Mary. Yikes. And another 4 exclamation points. Again, you took the words right out of our mouth, Mary.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So we got an email from Amy Davis. I want to preface this for those of you who listen to What We Do in the Shadows March Madness episode. You got to learn about Amy Davis, but Amy is actually who I'm here visiting in Huntsville. And I talked her into watching the show, and she is now watching the show. She hasn't seen this week's episode, but this is all of her feedback before. And I won't go into the story, but we call her Box. That's her nickname, is Box. And she and I talk in hashtags. So when you hear some of the hashtags, that's what all that means. So here we go. Hi, big fan of y'all. Thank you, Amy. Couple of things whilst, and that's her speaking, that's the way she says it. Couple of things whilst I've started watching The Pitt. This is not all my thoughts, just some hashtag thoughts by Box. Whitaker, bless his heart. I would have quit after dude peed on me. I like his character and hope he no longer has people tossing their bodily fluids on him. Bless Dana's heart. I hope she gets some sort of revenge on that douchebag. She's an absolute badass. I also think she was in episodes of VR and Grey's Anatomy. I wonder. Number 3, I just found out that Taylor Dearden, who plays Dr. King, is Bryan Cranston's daughter. I really like her character. I would have loved to remove pieces of road from someone's leg. That is right up Amy's alley. Amy says, Gloria, that evil hospital administrator, she can kick rocks. I understand Winky Finger's feedback scores and their importance, but they never tell the whole story. Good point. I see 1-star reviews on clothing because the person said their size small did not fit, but loved the shirt. Eye roll emoji. Just stop with your Yelp reviews. And props to actress Michael Hyatt. Michael? I wonder if that's supposed to be Michelle Hyatt. For her portrayal. She's like Imelda Stanton playing Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter.
Okay, pause. I need to give Amy kudos for that. Amy girl, that is exactly until this episode who she reminded me of, and I could not put it together in my head. Brilliant. Go ahead.
That whole comment was great. So next up, she says, I love capital LOVE Dr. Collins. When she miscarried and went back to work, my heart just broke, both for her miscarriage and the fact that she went back to work right after it happened. Sadly, that's what society seems to expect of women. Oh, I'm sorry you lost your baby. Can you please provide a doctor's note? And when will you be back to work? That's so freaking true. Honestly, I would have done the same thing, and going back to work is a distraction. Of course, now when a woman miscarries, she's treated like a criminal, or in some states are not even given treatment because people are dumb. Oh my God, Amy, spitting facts. Then she goes on to say, in all capital letters, lady giving birth. Holy crowning head, Batman. My favorite line, I see hair. The special effects people need a raise because, woo, buddy. And because of those special effects, I still do not want to give birth. And lastly, she says, okay, that's enough. Hashtag thoughts by Box. Thank you, Amy. That was great.
She's awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Amy.
We also received a voicemail from Sam. Let me give you a little background on Sam. Sam is a healthcare professional who helps people with their mental health, I think at the VA. I believe that's where she works. But she's just so smart, and she's one of the people who I get to podcast when I get to guest on the Still Slaying podcast. I'm very excited to hear what she has to say.
Hi, Becky and Mandy. My name's Sam. Becky knows me from the Still Slaying podcast. And it's nice to sort of officially meet you, Mandy. I feel like I know you from listening to your feedback episodes. I'm Sam. I'm one of the clinical psychologists that are a super big fan of the show and yourselves, the podcast. It's amazing. I really love just getting a debrief about this show with you ladies. And I really appreciate how you go in on the very hard topics that do affect human rights and medical care. And I think that's a
Mhm.
big thing that's resonating with a lot of us fans of the show of like, yeah, it's nice that people can choose not to think about these things. Us in healthcare, we don't have choice. So it's like we have to be on the front lines. So as a clinical health psychologist, I'm in my fourth hospital right now. We work on medical units. So like I don't really sit there and do trauma processing with people unless it's medical trauma. I help people cope with various medical illnesses and we take it from there. I also really work as a go-between between the medical staff and the patients, which is sometimes fun, sometimes a nightmare. So I can see why the show does not have a psychologist on there because it would just be a really, really, really boring show. Like none of this drama would escalate, or at least most of it wouldn't. And I know Kiara, her character is really great. I love her character because that is what social workers do. I mean, they are invaluable with their resources. It's really, really important. And psychologists are the ones like I would be called in to the vast majority of these cases.
Mm.
So it's just really cool to kind of see this, and I think they're doing a great job. So to give some feedback on some of the questions y'all had in the previous episode, I would have been called in with the substance seeking gentleman that Dr. Mohan and Whitaker were dealing with. Yeah, if I was called in after he got mad, which was not an uncommon question for me to hear from medical staff of like, hey, this patient's upset, can you deal with it? Sure. It's not my favorite. I usually like the preventative approach, but sure. Yeah, I would have had to take Dr. Mohan to task, which hurts my feelings because she's
Oh.
probably one of like I would have loved to work with that trainee because I've taught med students, interns, residents, fellows, and attendings, nurses. More nurses taught me than anything else. But I've worked with all the staff in a hospital, and it really is just this microcosm in there. And Dr. Mohan, I would have been really irritated with her that she made me be the bad guy. So you don't get to lie to a patient.
Hmm.
I was vegging when she was like, well, he called her out on it. And he's like, you lied to me. And she goes, well, I didn't lie to you. Technically, like I told you it was a morphine-like substance. Okay, he didn't go to medical school. Knock it off, Dr. Mohan. You got caught and you did lie to him. It was a lie by omission and you know it. So doctors take the same oath that psychologists do for beneficence and non-malfeasance. You don't get to withhold fully informed consent because you think you know better than this patient on what they can do with their own body. Bodily autonomy is something I continue to have to fight for with medical staff. When it comes to this almost paternalistic approach to patients of like, I know better, so I'm going to make the decision for them, you don't get to do that. Even if you're right, if they have capacity to make medical decisions like that gentleman did, you don't get to do that. It's just a hard no, and I have some horror stories about that. This man gets to make his own decisions about his own body and his own informed decisions. You don't trick someone into sobriety. That is not how this works. It is about the different stages of change. They don't go from pre-contemplation to action just because you tricked them, which was another horrific thing of like, great, so now this man is never going to trust medical staff again. And even if somehow gets to a space where he wants to get treatment, what are the odds he's going to reach out to a medical staff person again? Worse is that I would also have to like ream her out in front of Whitaker. I couldn't even do this one-on-one because she lied to the patient again, doubled down. So I'd be like, okay, great. Now I need to dress you down in front of the patient to show the patient that this isn't allowed. So please, we do respect your autonomy, sir. Come back again or go to your local hospital. Then I would have to dress her down in front of Whitaker as well to show the trainee that she had, because she's a trainee, but so is he. She's above him medically. Of like, yeah, no, Whitaker, actually, she did a bad thing. And if you do this bad thing by taking away patient autonomy, you are going to get yelled at by the people on staff because we know you can't do this. So that I would have been very irritated because I know she's a great doctor, and that is not okay. Speaking of not okay, as someone who was a trainee in a hospital in an ER and a supervisor in a hospital and in an ER, Dr. Santos would have been sent home day one. She would not have made it this far. Like that's my only critique really of the show, is that these supervisors are way more lenient than I'm used to. And maybe it's because my trainees, I kind of put the fear of God in them for a little bit of like, you better not mess with my patients. Our number one priority is to our patients. Number two is my responsibility to my trainees. It has to be patients first. Dr. Santos, she's a rock star. She's brilliant. And you're right, she's learning, but she's really pushed that button. You can't make unilateral decisions when you're a trainee. You don't know what you don't know. And the fact that this is her first day and she's making unilateral decisions, I'm sorry, like I would have sent her home. And trainees like this, whether they're my trainees in psychology or on the medical, the other parts of the medical staff, they can get a patient killed. And when we trust you to go see a patient, the patient is inherently trusting you too. They trust that you're not going to hurt them. And that's what that check-in is with your supervisor. Like, she kept messing up. When she did the trigger point injection for the woman with cervical pain, I'm sorry, you don't know what this pain is from, let alone the potential side effects. You don't know if this woman has an immune disorder. Like, what are you doing right now? You definitely need to run that past other people. She did have a big switcheroo when she dropped that scalpel onto Garcia's foot.
Oh.
So I am appreciating her change. As a person, I would love to be friends with Dr. Santos. I love that you're a badass. As a trainee, I would never want to work with her because she has not had any sort of humility. And so you cannot have that sort of confidence without the humility when you're a trainee. And that said, I thought like this was the first episode this week that I'm like, I love you, Dr. Santos, because she did a great job with that cell phone. I do agree that there is misogyny towards this reaction towards her character. Absolutely. I also think she's just not a likable person in her characterization of someone who's just this rock star rodeo in a team-based environment. And not everyone's made for a team-based environment. I actually think she'd do really great in surgery. In fact, Dr. Garcia, man, she's a badass too. I love her. I think she's great. She's also great at her job too. Same thing with, I missed her name, but the other surgeon, female surgeon that they had there, I was like, I love you, ma'am. You're great at your job. And you're helping patients and you're not making mistakes. And so the only thing I like about Garcia is you don't flirt with the trainees. That is inappropriate and weird. So I'm super excited to hear the feedback on this episode. It was really stressful to watch it. And Dana's my girl. Charge nurses are my loves. We were like two peas in a pod when I was working in ER. So I really worry about Dana. So I'm super excited to hear what you guys have to say. I don't think Langdon and Garcia are exes romantically. I think they're more of a sibling relationship because they probably either went to med school together or grew up as trainees in the hospital together. And it's more of a sibling teasing thing. He is way too easy on his trainees, with the exception of when he went off on her. That wasn't okay. And also his substance abuse. Dear God.
Oh yeah, that. Oh, Sam, thank you so much. Sam texted me to let me know that she sent in some feedback, and she said first it was 20 minutes, 19 minutes, and she cut it down. But she was like, I'm so sorry. I think it was great. Thank you so much, Sam, it's nice to hear your voice and your insight on the psychology side of what these guys are doing. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. It really helped me to understand even better what the issue was with what Mohan was doing when she lied by omission to that patient. For many reasons, this is why everybody in the world should be grateful I never got into medicine, because my morals are a little bit more flexible than would be allowed by the Hippocratic Oath. Because if you juxtapose Mohan's reaction to that patient to how she handled the sickle cell patients and how she fought for them to be listened to and heard and respected, a little bit of a bias against that guy. And that's what caused her to slip in her responsibility to the patient and the patient's bodily autonomy. So thank you for helping me see that. And I love that you went into a little bit more about why so many people that I see online that are medical professionals might dislike Santos for reasons other than just that she's a female. I still say there is, like you, I see that there is some misogyny there, but I am absolutely not any kind of a medical professional. And all of the procedures and the jargon in this episode, in this show, they tend to just slide right past me. It all just kind of runs together. I don't know any of it or what the proper situation would be, what the proper response would be to any of it. But I do understand now better. I keep seeing chatter online about people being upset that she was going to use the BiPAP machine without duly considering it earlier. And this gives me even more insight to places where she has just made choices that were arrogant and irresponsible and could have ended up causing somebody to die. Which is not something that I've really picked up on. I've seen it here and there, but I didn't realize the severity of the choices that she was making and the consequences that could have come out of that. So I really appreciate you giving us that knowledge. I love, love, love when we hear from medical professionals, and everything you said was just so spot on. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I'm glad you got to meet her too. That's cool.
Yeah, she sounds like a smart chick. I hope she comes
to
on.
have her on one day. So now that she's watching the show, I think we have a good chance that she might.
Yeah, come on, Sam. All right. So thanks again to everyone who wrote and called in with feedback and for all the love. We really love hearing from you all every week.
We want to give a special thanks to the Pitt fan page, y'all. The work that this page has done, helping us get in touch with people on the show, start scheduling interviews, and all the help with feedback and learning the whole interview process, which is brand new to us. They've been absolutely incredible, and I cannot tell you how much we appreciate everything you're doing for us. So thank you to the Pitt fan page, and also thanks to the Pitt with Noah Wiley on Max and the Reddit page, the Pitt. We appreciate y'all providing us great content and allowing us to post our episodes and such on the pages. I am in awe every week how much feedback we get from the Reddit page, and it's so exciting. So thanks to all, and we'll post links to all these pages in our show notes. So please give them some love. All right, we are into last week's poll results. We did not have as many votes this week as we did the week before. We had 10 total votes, but the question was, do you think showing the birth scene was too much? And Mandy, what was our results?
So 90% said, I'm glad they showed it. It was good for all to see the real deal. And 10%, which would have been one vote, said, nope, it was too much. I can respect that, but I am with the 90%. I think it really highlighted what women go through and how very dangerous birth can be. And
I want to real quick thank Maureen. She did send me a message through our What's On Tonight where she was discussing, let me read her feedback. She just said, what did we just watch? And I said, right, it was wild. And she's like slipping in, and she did a blood drop emoji and then the crossed out eyes emoji and then a skull emoji. And so the reason I bring this up is because she posted last week asking me, where is the poll? And I had completely forgot once we got the episode up to post the poll. So thank you, Maureen, for staying on top of me about that.
After Becky posts the poll this week, we'll go pin that to the top of the page so that you can find it there.
That's perfect. Get a good call. Well, speaking of, this week's poll is, should Robbie have done more to get Langdon out of the ED? Do you think he should have stood firm until he left? Or do you think because he was in the middle of a massive trauma situation, he didn't have time to force the issue? So let us know. We'll get that posted once the episode's up. We'll make sure it's pinned to the page, and we look forward to hearing what y'all think. If anyone would like to get in touch with us, leave some feedback, or just say hi, you can email or send us a voice message like Sam did as an attachment to @what'sontonight, 2 @gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comment section, send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can also be found on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast and 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you leave a review, comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice. All right, so I don't know about you, Mandy, but this is a chaotic day. So how about we head to the lounge, play some games with Harrison, and to get away from all the chaos, and let's talk about podcast recommendations, good TV, movies, or just anything else that you want to share. What do you got?
So I want to talk about our amazing interview experience with Justin Wade this week. Justin, aka Brainworm Guy, from what was it, Becky? I believe it was episodes 3 and 4
3 through 6.
He was kind enough to take time to sit down and talk to us via Zoom this week. His insights were just phenomenal. He's such a funny guy. I feel like I'm now part of his fan club because he's a very well-rounded guy. And if you haven't had a chance to go and check out that interview, please do yourself a favor. He was just a super funny guy. He's super interesting and smart. And we really learned a lot about the inner workings of the show from Justin. Thank you so much, Justin. If you're out there listening, we had a great time. I know we told you this during the interview, but you are welcome to come back on anytime you feel like it, just a chit chat. And I cannot wait to have more interviews with cast coming up.
Yeah, we've got a lot in the works thanks to the Pitt fan page. So keep an eye out. I don't want to say much until we actually get them scheduled so I can tell you when and who we're going to be talking to, and then you'll have an opportunity to offer fan questions. And just like we did with Justin, we read a couple of the fan questions that we got. He was very fun and gracious with his answers. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. But we want to thank, like Mandy said, thanks, Justin. It was an absolutely amazing time. And like we said in the interview, you'll always be our first.
Technically, Wendy is our first, but he's our first cast interview.
Well, he's our cast interview. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So as far as podcast recommendations, I just have a reminder to please check out Panels to Pixels podcast, where we're covering Daredevil Reborn. You can find links to each episode on our What's On Tonight page, as well as the Panels to Pixels podcast page. And I recommend Yellow Jackets WTF. That podcast is on a roll with their coverage of the absolutely insane show Yellow Jackets. So check it out, and a lot of other amazing podcasts on podcastica.com. Want to give a big thank you to Mark at Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit their website. It can be found on our Facebook page, and there you can find our podcasts and the Panels to Pixels podcast that I mentioned above, and a lot of the other podcasts like the Slay Lounge podcast with Billy and Will. And then you can also hear about other projects that Mark is working on.
Well, that wraps up our coverage of episode 12 of The Pit. I think this podcast was 3 times as long as the actual episode.
Yeah.
There was so much to cover. We'll be back next week where we are going to break down episode 13 titled 7 p.m.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. So please go out there and be kind to each other. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight.
Bye.
Did Santos and Langdon just become best friends?
Yup.